share with you. Share with you a brekel of Torah, speak about a brekel of Torah, a idea of Torah. It really gives us clarity in a very big and very common sugya. We had a shiloh where someone washed laundry, and the laundry was put into a laundry basket, and the woman felt very uncomfortable leaving it over Shabbos. So he wanted to take each one and put it away. Is that boira? You're not really separating, you're putting everything in its place. That was one shiloh. We had a shiloh where someone had leftover soup, and they didn't want to put it into the garbage because then the soup would leak. So they wanted to put the whole soup with the lakshin and the knedel and everything into the sink. The sink strainer would hold back the solid, and the liquid would go down. So this already sounds very intimidating. You're using a strainer. A strainer is a kli boyer. Is that boyer? I'll tell you another shiloh. This is an interesting shiloh. This is a yeshiva shiloh, a camp shiloh. The bochum have negel vasa, the shislach, the teplach, the cup, and the basin. And typically, they have stackable cups and stackable basins. And you can have like 20 cups, one in the other, one on top of the other, in the other. And the shiloh is the first fellow that goes to sleep. He has to take out his cup from a pile of cups. His basin from the other basins. Is that a problem of boira? He's taking the good from the bad, taka, and he's not using a keli, but he's not using it right away. He's going to wake up many hours later. I don't know how many hours. We're not going to wake up to miyad. So taking out from a stack of cups, is that considered boira? Is that considered using it right away? So basically, as you know, and we'll soon see, the common denominator of these shilas are, it's not your typical case of boira, but I think what gives us the right direction is to pose the following chakira. The issa of boira has two parts to it. There's the maisa boira and the teitzah. Typically in the Mishkan, there was either the tua or the herbs, and that got mixed with psoilis. Boira means separating the oichel from the psoilis. So there's a maisa boira and a teitzah. The question is, if there's just a teitzah without a maisa. For example, I'll give you a perfect example. Someone has a whole bunch of cutlery, silverware, in the sink drainer. And they want to set the table now, tonight, for the next morning. That's a problem of boira. You're separating the teruvos. So the person had a brilliant idea. Take all the silverware and throw it on the table, a big table, an empty table. And now all the silverware will be separate, one from the other. It won't be a teruvos. So the shaila is, there's no maisa boira. Just throwing silverware is not a maisa boira. But the teitzah is, it's all mavura. So the shaila is the maisa boira, you have to have both? Pa'ula, maisa boira and teitzah? Is one enough? And that's the shaila. And we'll leave the rest to suspense how everything fits into this chakira. But let me just make the question a little more gishmak. Because the emes is that there's the oldest kasha. In order to be malacha deraisa, it has to be a malacha hatzricha legufa. You have to do the malacha for a positive benefit. A person carries something to use. But if he carries something out of the house, he doesn't want it in the house, that's called a malacha shen tzricha legufa. It's a malacha derabanan still, it's derabanan, but it's not an issa deraisa. Because he's not using, there's no positive benefit, he's getting rid of a problem. So the kasha is, why? Or better yet, how could boira ever be malacha deraisa? It's always by nature a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. Well, let's talk about a simple case of boira. You have a cluster of grapes, and there's a few rotten grapes. So before you serve it, you take out the rotten grapes, and you put down the cluster of grapes. The question is, you're taking out those rotten grapes, and you're not using it, you're throwing it in the garbage. So why isn't every boira by nature a malacha shetzricha legufa. But that's foolish, it can't be. Because, as we know, boyer is one of the lamates malachas. Had it been a malacha shetzricha legufa, it wouldn't be a malacha deraisa. So, frag the issue was Yaakov in the beginning of Siman Shin Yutes. Why is boyer ever malacha deraisa? It's a malacha shetzricha legufa. So the teretz is a big yisoid, which really Rashi, if you look in Shabbos, said mamish this yisoid, very bekitza. Rashi's in Kufal Amatesla with Beis, Machal Bein Agitois. I saw also Levush and Sif Tessa now with Sim says it also, but the Shus Yaakov spells it out the most dramatically, and he says you're making a mistake. The Issa Boyer is not taking out the rotten grapes. That would be a malach tzricha legufa. The Issa is tikkun oichel. You have a cluster of grapes, and it's not appealing. They're rotten grapes. So by taking out the rotten grapes, you are actually being masakin the oichel. Tikkun oichel is very much an issa deraisa, and there's a very simple analogy. We know Mila Bismana is Doicha Shabbos. Mila Shalai Bismana is also. Why don't we say every Mila Shalai Bismana is a Machzich Legufa? Avad he's making the baby bleed, but you're not using the blood. Avad he's cutting off the orla, but you're not using the orla. So why isn't every Mila a Malach Machzich Legufa? There it is Pashit. Because the Is is not cutting off the orla or making the child bleed. The Issa is being misakin the child from an oral to a mohel. And that's the pshat of the Yeshuas Yaakov. That's why there's a Issa of Boira. The Issa is Tikkun Oichel. Tikkun Oichel is very much a Malacha Hatzricha Leguf. Once we understand that Boira is Tikkun Oichel, we can understand that maybe you don't need a Ma'isa Boira. As long as there's taitzah, for example, you took all these silverware, that was one big tarubas, and you scattered on the table. Even if we assume there's no ma'isa boira, but look, you have it, it's mavora. So the issa of boira could be mavora. Is it boira or mavora? Is it misakin? Or maybe tikkun's enough. That's how we're shy. So let me make it a little more bishmak. We all know that boira is malacha deraisa. But when you derech achila we call it, you take the good from the bad to eat right away, and you're not using a keli, that's mutter. For example, you have a cluster of grapes, same mashal. So taking off the rotten grapes is a ma'isa boira, because you're taking out the rotten grapes. But let's say you take the good grapes off to eat right away, and you're not using a keli, that's mutter. It has to be the good from the bed. Oichel mipsoiles. You have to do it biyad with the hand, not with the keli, and it has to be la'alta to eat right away. In fact, you want to wait. Good way to remember the word ayel meshulish. Say, if we got ayel meshulish, he writes this about it, about this way of remembering. Ayel is oichel mipsoiles. Yud is yad. Lamed is la'alta. So ayel meshulish, that's the head. Now you understand how bishmak that is. Because when you take the oichel mitayr psoilis with the yad to eat right away, that's a ma'isa achila. If you take the psoilis out, you take the rotten grapes out, it becomes locha deraisa. What's that? There it says pashit. Why are you taking out the rotten grapes? It's not derech achila. You want to be misakin the oichel. You want to be misakin the cluster. Oh, that's the problem. So the difference between ayil that's mutter and any other case that's missing is when you follow the ayil klal, that is considered derech achila. If you take the psaz with derech oichel or use a keli, that would be a tikkun oichel. Now we also understand. People ask, it has to take only mutter to take the good from the bed. So why is it mutter to peel an orange on Shabbos? I'm taking the psaz with derech oichel. So the belt of the teretz is, if there's no other choice, you're allowed to do it. But that's not true. But if there's no choice, you're allowed to Chol Shabbos. It's ridiculous. The teretz is, the way to eat grapes is take the good from the bad. You want to take off the psoilis? That's tikkun oichel. But there's no other way to eat an orange. So the orange is the derech achila by peeling it. So this is the yisoid of derech achila, which is perfectly mutter, and tikkun oichel, which is a malacha hatzricha legufa, which qualifies Boyer to be a Maisa Boyer Malacha D'Oraisa. So now we have a better understanding. Let's try to approach this Lamaisa. So first thing I want to tell you, Boyer is unique mitzad the fact that Boyer is either Muta or Malacha D'Oraisa. Now when you learn Hilchos Shabbos, you'll notice that the bulk, probably the overwhelming majority of Hilchos Shabbos is the Rabbanans. The whole Chelik Daled, Erevin, and Erev Tchum, and it's all the Rabbanans. Much of Muktzah, almost all of Muktzah is the Rabbanans. A lot of even of Hilchos Bishul is only Chazorah, Mefsek Mevashel. You'll notice that most of Hilchos Shabbos, at least what we encounter, is Malach Isudu Rabbanan. Boira, raise a pella. You look it up, you'll see. The first 5 seifim in Shin Yutes Hilchos Boira, the Mechaber says, come out this same lashon. If you do it like this, it's muta. If you do it differently, it's chayiv. Chayiv is a nice way of saying chayiv chatas, or worse, chayiv skila. Boira has that unique feature to it that either it's muta or it's malacha d'oraisa. And sometimes it's a halal, a mamash, a chut asayra, the difference between malacha d'oraisa and muta. But that's what we have to walk on. We have to walk this tightrope, which we're going to try to do Bez Hashem. So, Amaisa, we're talking today, we're talking today when there's a taruvais. If it's not mixed up, if you have silverware on the table, already that's not one next to the other, it's not taruvais. We're going to talk about a situation where it's taruvais, where it's Amaisa boira l'choira. Is there any head? So let me tell you a Gemara that gives us a great start. The Gemara is in Shabbos, Daf Ayin Dalid. It seems they had a group of Talmidei Chacham that ate together. They learned together probably. They ate together, B'kitzah. And each Shabbos, a different Amayr was the quote, the waiter, the Moshe Oimid Al Gabor. Well, this Shabbos was our Bibi's turn to serve his colleagues, the Talmidei Chachamim. And he had a basket of fruit that had pseilos in it. So what did he do? He took the basket and threw it on the table. So Rashi says, Leiratza liver, he didn't want to make a boira. So what he did was, Shotcham, he scattered them on the table, with this scattering, with this throwing, Nifra sha'oichel me'olav. He had a taruga situation. He wanted to serve his Talmidei Chacham friends. So he threw it on the table, and each took what they wanted. Maybe it was apples and oranges, and there was psoilis. The kids each took what they wanted, and he threw it on the table to avoid the Issa Boira. So someone asked for Moshe, Chelik Daled, Siman Ayin Daled, if you have, let's say, silverware all together, taruvais, and you want to separate them for tomorrow, not for now, is it mutter? Moshe says, and he points to this Gemara, Shabbos Daf Ayin Daled. Moshe says, it's an Eitzah Torah. You're saying very good. And Rav Moshe holds it's mutter. Just like the Har Tzvi holds it's mutter, the Shmir Shabbos, Rav Sternbuch. And many poskim point to this Gemara. If you have a situation of taruvais, if you have silverware, taking one at a time and separating it is a malacha d'oraisa. But the same situation of taruvais, scattering on the table is mutter. How do you understand that? Must be that Rav Moshe and those that hold that same sheet to hold the Issa Boira is the Maisa Boira, separating forks from knives and spoons. But scattering is not a Maisa Boira. You had the Toitzah, right now everything is Mevora. There's no Issa Toitzah without the Maisa Boira. Rabbi Yashiv, quoted that Sefer Ayam B'Shulish, he has a problem with this, and he says, maybe throwing is a Maisa Boira. So you have a Pula and you have a Toitzah. He says, how do you learn the Gemara? Why does Rabbi Bibi feel that we mutter? He says, because Rabbi Bibi was doing it to feed them to eat right away. So that wasn't boyer, that was complying with the 3 conditions. He's throwing it on the table, they're taking the oichel, yad, and the alta. So our Hakira, it seems to be machlokes how to learn Mishtikal Gemara Masechta Shabbos. Most poskim seem to go with Rav Moshe Shita, that since Lamaisa, you're not doing a Maisa Boira, and throwing is not a Maisa Boira. Throwing happens to achieve, it's now separate. but it's not a Maisa Boira. So we could definitely say that from this Gemara, the Chayr is a Raya, when there's no Maisa Boira, although there's a Taitzah, that might be Mutter. Again, Rabbi Yashin held this also, so we can't just say 100% Mutter, but there's definitely what to be Saimach on in this case. Now let me ask you the next question. Someone has he made a simcha, okay? And for some reason when you make a simcha, you get back more trays of cake than you put on the table. There's so much leftovers. Bekitzi, he has a bunch of stacked trays of different cakes. So he wants to separate them. You can't leave it on the table all day. And I guess he's not worried about a chana because he wants to put it in the freezer to keep it from getting dry, whatever it is. I'm not getting into chana now. He holds its mutter because he wants to put it away for now to keep it neat. But you can't put trays of cake in the freezer. So he goes and looks at his kokish cake and Malaya cake, whatever it is, and he takes all the cake, the kokish cake, in one bag, and closes it up, puts it in the freezer. So he separates all the trays on Shabbos. And he's not worried about a chana. Is that boira? Why should it not be boira? I'll tell you why. Because boira is oichel and psoilus. Here, it's all oichel, it's all good cake, not spoiled cake. So where should be Maisa boira? The fact that he ends up separating cakes, but it's all oichel. B'yesa biyah, b'yesa gishmak. If on a tray of cake, like sometimes it is, someone took a piece of cake and left the other half behind, he left it for shirayim for someone else, half-bitten piece of cake, that's psoilus. Taking that out, that's boiler. But if it's all untouched cake, laying nicely, so it's both oichel. And this is the suffix that Pri Megadim has. Megadim in Tzit Cotton Bay, Mishlei Zahav, he declares this shaila, Shneim, that la'achas man, you're going to use it first next week, whatever, but not now. But it's all, l'chayra now, it's all oichel, they're both oichel. Maybe there would not be a problem of boira. So here we see a new factor. If it's not oichel and psoilus, it's not a ma'aser boira. Hagam, at the end of the day, it's all mavura. However, for us, it's very hard to understand. Because the Maisa, he's going through the motions of boira. He's separating cakes. And he has a teitzah. Who said the Maisa boira entails having oichel and psoilus? If you have taken the good from the bad, he right away is mutter. But taking two oichel and separating them, why is that a Maisa boira? And Taka de Halacha in Siv Gimel argues very strongly on this Pri Megadim. And he says, what do you mean? He's doing a Maisa boira, he's separating trays of cake. He ends up, all the cakes are mavur. Why should this be justifiable? Just because of technicality, they're both oichel, but the Maisa you're not using any now. There's no heta of miyad. And that's the Bialach's taina. And this, let me tell you, what the Heintige Poiskim, they use that word miyun. Now miyun is not like miyun in like a dushin. I think it's a modern Hebrew word. It's like, first you know what it meant. It's mem, yud, vav, nun, loshen min. That if you have different cakes, it's all edible. But separating, putting each one in its own different compartment, that itself is a Maisa boira. Because you have a mishach, so you have a tray of cake with different types, and now you separated it. So although the Maisa, the Pri Megadim, seemed, he personally, because Lashon was really good Torah Suffolk, but at least we have these two klolim. That pizor, scattered on the table, most poskim are makel. Evidently, there's no Maisa boira. But miyun, which we're going to call sorting, means you're just putting each one in its own place. Even though it's all oichel, but that does qualify to be a Maisa boira with a teitzah, and that would be us.
The reason it should be mutter is because there's no mitzvahs of a taroivis, because each of the cakes are really...
No, we're talking, I said before, we're talking whenever there's a taruvis. So if you think of taroivis, you're fine, you're right. I'm talking, we'll soon see Trim Session, that if it's on a tray, next to the other, it is a taruvis. Yeah, we'll see soon, good, you're asking good. But I'm happy you brought up, I'm talking only when there's a taruvis. The rather word is taroivis, but for some reason no one else says that, But Lamaisa, this is clearly we talk when there's a taroivis. Okay, now let's move on. The next question is an absolutely delightful question, but it gets us right into the sham of the sukkah. Let's talk about a basket of laundry. Okay? Supposed to wash the laundry Thursday and put it away Thursday. They washed it Friday, and Friday night it's an eyesore, the balas said, I can't, it's so imasuda. I want to put them all away. But what about Hachana? No, Hachana, bothers her, it's not Shabbos, let's leave Hachana to the side. But what about Boyer? You have a real taruva. This is Mama's different meaning. Mama's different clothing, not like cake. And what you're doing is you're taking one out and putting it away. So here there's an interesting point that has to be clarified. This, in a certain sense, is not boira, because boira means you're selecting. I need socks from this laundry, so if I take the socks to wear now, it's mutter. But if I take socks out tonight to wear tomorrow, that's boira. Why? Because you're missing the altar. That's why it would be us. But in this case, you're not targeting one of the other. You're taking kol habol yodai, in English you're taking randomly, you take out one, put it away, take out one. You're not selecting one from the other. So the shaila is, maybe that's not a ma'aseh boira. Boira means you're targeting this one or that one. Here you take kol habol yodai. Or maybe, what's the to a cup? I'm taking one at a time, I'm taking a terovis, it's a real terovis, and it ends up being Mavura. So very similar to our Shaila. So let me give you a little more gishmak to the sugi. Let's say you have a tray of cake, and it's a terovis. So you want to take a piece of cake for your child, for tomorrow morning when he goes to shul, he'll have a piece of cake. Now the Baal Sabai doesn't want to wake up in the morning to give him the piece of cake, so the night before she goes, what cake would you like? He goes, I only want 7-layer cake. So now the mother's in trouble. To take 7-layer cake from a terovis of different cakes is boiler. You're taking the good from the bad. You're not using a keli. No, that's not miyad. Let's say the child is the atypical, goes, Ma, whatever you give me is good. I need a kazayas, that's all I need. That would be mutter. You know why? Because all the cakes for the child are all eichel. So it's not a terovis. But so therefore, whatever you take is good. Is that similar to our case? Well, the Maisa, no. The cakes are all one because they're all cake. Here, it's different clothing. It's socks and it's undershirts and it's the handkerchief, whatever it is, but it's so different. So you have a taroibis and you have a Maisa boyer. So this is what all, again, the Heineke Paiskim are very busy with this. This is what they call kalabol yodai. It's unlike the typical boyer that you're targeting one over the other. Here, you're taking kol habol yodai. However, it's not as good as it sounds. It's a chilik shein b'schalik. You have a taroibis, you're separating it, you're doing a perfect ma'aseh boyer, taking one after the other, and that's why the Machzor Eliyahu has a beautiful tshuva in Siman Mem Tes, and he says people think that this heta of independent heta kol habol yodai, and it's illogical and it's senseless. He says the fact that no one spoke about this, there's no electricity in Shulchan Aruch, they didn't have it, but they had kol habol yodai. And he says, why did Rabbi Bibi think of this eitzah and take kol habol yodai, give this to each one? The teretz is that that's not a heta. It's a ma'aseh boira. You're taking one at a time, and it's also a toitzah.
Why is that a ma'aseh boira just to take the top thing off?
Why is it?
Why is that? Why what's boira about it?
Let's say because it's a terovis.
The top is not the terubis.
Every top
is not the terubis.
Okay, so every top you can say that, but it doesn't make sense. It has to be that a pile is considered a terovis. But when you get to that, so you're asking good. So this is what he wants to say, and he says, I was afraid to come out with this tshuva. I went to Rabbi Yashiv. This goes back in Lamed Tes, and they said avaditos. Now, Lamaisa, again, from Heineke Paiskim, that's where Shabbos goes with this, and the Aruch Shabbos, and they all say, even though it's not the regular, but it's close enough. Rav Shmuel Kamenetz Gesund in the Kovetz Halachos, he quotes his father, Rabbi Yakov, that said, this is not a Ma'aseh boyer and it's mutter. And he says, he heard B'Shem Rapam, that Rapam heard from Rabbi Yakov, that kol habol yodai, random selection, not a Ma'aseh boyer. And that's not like he's saying. So here we see something of great significance, great importance, and Lamaisa, it's totally now chakira. Now Lamaisa, I did see another makel, probably these are the only two Makim that I found, but Rabbi Yankiv was Rabbi Yankiv, and this is the Sheikh Alevi in Chelik Yud Aleph, Siman Tzadik Aleph. The Rav of the Kaisel asked him of his nightmare, his weekly nightmare, Friday night and Shabbos afternoon. There are piles of svarim up, piles and piles in the Kaisel, and he can't deal with it. People eat Sturm and Tim, and everything's on the table. So he asked the Vazna, what should I do? It's Bayer. What's the problem? Like you said, take one at a time and put it back on the shelf. And he says, Kolaboli Yadai, Yikach Rishon, Beli Seida, the aim is as Srachisa. So here's something as poshut and as integral and as applicable as this one, and it's a Machloik Gedoli HaPoiskim.
You put it back to the shelf, could you put it among the Chumoshim?
Why not?
Chumosh?
Once you hold it's not Bayer, you can put it where you want. Now, Lamaisa, I'm not going to Machriya, I'm not Roy in the Kaf, but I'm going to tell you Chumas Hadeshin, and I say Kechach Masech. And that's the get to you. Chumas Hadeshin, in Simon Nun Zayin, the Gedolei Katmoinim, was asked a question, if you have not trays of cake, fish, but the same idea. Salmon, whitefish, pike, whatever it is, one lay down next to the other, not mixed up, not a cholent, it just laid out nicely. Is it better to put it away? Because you're selecting, or maybe no, it's a tray, it's a row of salmon and a row of whitefish, and where's the taraymas? He says, Nira, that it's keneged, it's ma'oid keneged svar saleh. It's almost unthinkable, unfathomable to say that that's boyer, because each one is nikah. But since the smag says when boyer is us, it's malacha deraisa, I will not, and it's bichayev chatas, I cannot be mekel b'lei raya brura. And the Machaba quotes this Chumas Hadesh. In other words, boyer, we have to take the approach, it's guilty until proven innocent. Something as simple, and he says, but you could swear in the court of law that it's not Darevis, then don't do it. So this certainly applies to this Kolav Oliyadeh, which is much more understandable to say it's a Maisa Boyer Gom, a Vezop Vanish. I mean, every pile you could have suddenly take one at a time and undo it. So again, it's our Hakira with a beautiful Nafkamina. Let's move on. Now, but we see the following. Let's just get the terminologies. We have the concept of boyer being a tikkun oichel, and malchas v'yichel gufa. We have pizer that most poskim are mekel. We have mion that almost all the poskim asa, and we have kolav oliyodei that almost all the poskim are machmir. There are gedolei that are mekel. Now let's apply this more specifically. So first of all, when someone has a cluster of grapes and he wants to serve it, so either prepare before Shabbos, but pulling out those grapes is a malacha deraisa boira, which is even to use right away. Now, when you had one to shayla, someone took a grape to eat, nothing wrong. That's oichel, that's ayil, oichel yada alter. But his mazel, it was a half rotten grape, and more of a mazel. He's particularly a nervous person, so he got all nervous. He has to bring a chatas because he ended up taking the pseudo oichel. So it's not true. First of all, if the grape was partially edibly part of it, so it's an oichel. It's not totally psoilus. And also, it's totally in the kavanah. In fact, the Sfasema says even a bigger chiddush on the Shabbos. The Sfasema says, let's say a person took something, wanted to take the oichel, and by mistake took the psoilus gomer out. So it's like a masasek. There's no kavanah doing issa. Here the kavanah is the difference mamish. So if someone took out the raw grape or the half rotten one, and there's no chiyuv to eat it or throw it back in the pile. Once he took it out beheta, it blind is a heta. Question: someone has leftover soup or whatever it is, and they put it in the garbage, it might start to drip out. So he wants to throw it in the sink. And the problem is, in the sink, there's a strainer. A strainer is a real bona fide kli boyer. So why should it be mutter? He's using a kli boyer. But here we see how our Yisoid gives us a good insight. Comes again the Prima Godim in Sivkot Yud, and he has a similar shaila, not by a sink strainer, but he has a shaila where both are psoilus. See, till now we're handling oichel and psoilus, but when two psoilus, there can be a maisa boyer. Our soup, when it's going to be spilled in the sink, both are psoilus. It might be very delicious, keilach and lakshin, but if you throw in the garbage, it's all psoilus. So oy bazoi, there might be a maisa boyer because there's a strainer, but there's no teitzah. There's nothing before. They're both going down the drain. So that's why Taka, the Moshe was asked this shaila. again from Shemonai Chayil Das Menai Dalet, and Moshe said, I don't see the Shaila. If they're both going like Ibud, then they're both Psoilas, there's no Maisa Boira. There's no Titzah Boira. Now, the Maisa, the Tzitz Eliezer points out, some people are afraid to be Saimach on this Hefter, so they take off the sink strainer. He says you're not really gaining, because deep down, a little deeper down in the plumbing, in the piping, there's a sort of a strainer that holds back big pieces. So you're doing a Maisa Boira anyhow. The only thing is that if you use a strainer, you won't have to call a plumber after Shabbos. If you throw everything down the sink, it's going to get stuck in that semi-strainer. So Bekitza, this is a unique Chiddush, which sounds so intimidating. It's a Maisa Boira, true. But Vivai, there is no Psoilis and Oichel, felt this in the Shem Malachim, and two Psoilis, there wouldn't be an Issa of Boira. Now, when you're cleaning a table, and assuming, which we'll soon see, but assuming it's all Psoilis, so then you can throw it all out. You can separate, you can take the dirty plates, the cups. If it's no taroivis, because it's both psoilis and not being mavur of any significance, this would not be an issa of boyer. Now, of course, the American shaila is, but there's soda bottle on the table, and you want to put it in the recycling. At least in New York, you must put it in separate garbage, and especially if you're getting back a nickel per bottle. So maybe the soda bottle that's redeemable or usable might be a oichel in this respect, akapan. But typically it shouldn't be a problem of boyer. Question: someone is given the job, Shabbos after the Suda, we need challah for Sudas, take out the challah from the freezer. So he opens the freezer and says, "It's good." Okay, you can't see mamish in front of him, but he has no idea where the challah is. Go find it. Now, obviously that's a teroivis, right? If you can't find it, it's teroivis. So someone asked me, is it an eitzah if he just puts his hand in, without moving anything, and just feels, oh, there's the challah, and he'll pull it out. I said, wait a second. If you're taking it out to eat right away, it's mutter, sure. But the problem is you're taking it out now to use later. So the fact that you didn't have to move anything to get to the psoilis, who cares? Here you're taking the oichel, but you're not using it right away. So the fact that you know where it is, or you put your hand on the belt to feel it, that's fine. But to pull it out, you're taking the good from the bad, but it's not miyad. But the shaila is, but what should I do? It takes 3 hours to defrost. So if you're taking it out 3 hours before the shal shudis, we'll talk about that in a moment. But you take it out now, so you won't forget for later. So you're taking it out 5 hours before the next suda, so that's not miyad. So even though he's taking out the good from the bad, and he's taking it biyad apakeli, it's not la'alta, and it will be awesome. Shlomo Zalman and Shmir Shabbos, Chiddush, but this is what he says in Peri Gimel, Reish Chavbeis. He says, even if you take it out 3 hours, which you need for it to defrost, it's still not la'alta. La'alta means to use it right away. Who says you have a grace period of 3 hours because you need 3 hours to defrost it? If you take out an onion from a mixture of other vegetables, and you're using it now, it takes you half hour to cut up the onion and get it ready. So that's all the alta. But if you take it out and do nothing for 3 hours, you're not doing anything changing in the chayfetz. So Shlomo Zalman has this chiddush, I know it's a chiddush, that's not alta. If you take it out to use right away, or cut up you take out an onion to cut it up and put it here, you're doing something with it. But just take it out to be ready for 3 hours, he holds that's not considered the alta. Others say, what says? I need the natural time. But no doubt about it, it's definitely a good idea. Once you get used to it, it's very simple. Before Shabbos, whatever you need on Shabbos, the challah, put it in the front of the freezer. It's a good idea. Take off all the frozen meat that's on the door of the freezer, which you open and close, and you have to be samech on tilkum and atzad, and all these affairs. Put the raw meat in the back of the freezer, put the challah in the front. Once it's discernible, once it's noticeable, there's not a teroivis. And a teroivis is no problem of boyer. Question, but where it is an interesting eitzah, let's say you have an eggshell on the eggs. So the Maisa, that's considered a teroivis. Moving it slightly to the side, as long as it blinds the same teroivis, that would be okay. See, in the freezer, you take it out and entirely. But if you move it slightly, but the teroivis blinds, but it's not so noticeable, that is more of a heter. But no doubt about it, the fact is that when you have a teroivis taking it out, it has to be la'alt. And sometimes we make that mistake, we don't see through the the misleading point, I'm doing it to use it. No, you're not using it right away, that's not legal. Another question, and that is regarding silverware. Now let me explain. Setting a table Friday night after the Sukkah for Shabbos morning should not pose a problem of achana, obviously not, because it's all for Shabbos. And if you want to set up the table, the chayre there's no problem, because in the silverware, each one is in its own compartment. The knives, the forks. It's not a tarayvis. If it's not a tarayvis, it's not a ma'aser boyer. But it's often a problem. A person has a silverware that he washed Friday night. He put it into the dish drainer. And you put it in and a bunch of them together, and it dries naturally. And he wants to set the table. Problem is, right now in that drainer, it's all tarayvis. It's all different types of cutlery. And he's setting a table for tomorrow. So he's not using a keli, true, but l'maisa is not la'alta. He's taking the goods from the bed, true, but it's not la'alta. So the shayla is, what's the heta? Is there a heta? But yasabir. Let's say he has, by the Suda Friday night, a mixture of different cutlery. And he wants to wash what he needs. So you can take out a fork and wash it, a spoon and wash it, that's fine. Because you take it out to use right away. But here you're setting a table at night for the next morning. So you're not using a keli, and taka but l'maisa, it's not la'alta. And that's a problem. And that's why, if you do want to set the table, either you could take all the silverware that when they're clean and scatter it on the table. You have a Moshe's head. Someone asked the following question. Just like I'm allowed to take out one silverware to wash it, right? That's what I'm allowed to do. I need a fork. I'll take it out to wash right now. So why should I be a botlin and put it back in the drainer and make another tarayvis? I'll take it out, dry it, and put it on the table. I said it. He's right. Once you did the initial boyer beheta, because you're taking the goods from the bed to use it right away, the hainu to wash it, so you have the fork in your hand beheta. So hold it and put it down. So if you wash them and put them back in and make a teroivis, then you have a problem. So chachamein b'roish, you take it out, wash it, and put it on its place. What is a problem, which goes unnoticeable, let's say everything you have to wash, everything in this basin except for the soup spoons. So to save time, I'll take all the soup spoons out and put them on the side. That's a ma'aser boyer mamish. You're taking out what's toilets, which you don't need. But once you're washing, you're allowed to wash kala boliyodai, whatever you need. That's zichemut because you're washing for now. Now is the miyad. And then once you have it, don't be a batlin and put it back.
Washing now for tomorrow's school now?
Why not?
You wash
Achana.
You do take it.
No, achana on Shabbos.
Why can't second table be the same matter?
What?
You're not taking, you're not doing anything for now.
You allowed to wash when you want. It's not achana for the next suda. What? And clothing. It's their shimush.
Yeah, we're washing this out. That's getting anything to wash.
You always wash right. Now, I should have mentioned another point, which if all the silverware are usable, the only question is it's all min echad. What you need, it's all min echad. So you call a bowl of yodai, you're taking one from this usable and use it. But it's more than that. I think the Havon is incorrect. When you wash something and this is the time to wash it, this is what you need now. You're not doing a chana for tomorrow, you're washing it a mice as if. Now, you know what you're right? I'll tell you. One of the Heintige Poskim says it's chiddush was a clear. If you have a bunch of silverware and they're wet, so take out one to dry it, it's mutter because that's a mice now, and later you can put it on the table. See, that already is an achana for tomorrow. But washing, a person doesn't want the sink to be full of dirty dishes overnight, so now is the time. If now is the time to wash. But that's the chiddush. They say this chiddush. Taking out one to dry it, ma'aser het. Then I'll dry it and put it back on the table. That's the question.
You have to put it in the can you put it in
a
the
little late, I
drawer?
want to keep close to the time, but I'll answer the question afterwards. The next question we started with a variety. We started with the question about laundry. Taking kala boliyodai and put it away. And taka most poskim hold, for Rabbi Yakov Zev, that's a ma'aser boyer. How about if you take out one at a time to fold it? Let's say it's foldable laundry. So again, it's the same dak as the gavard. It's all totally in perception. Do we say that folding is a ma'aseh fazich and it's a ma'aseh heta? So once I have it, I can put it back in the drawer. Or no, folding is really step one or stage one of sorting laundry. That's really the ma'aseh putting away laundry. So again, washing dishes, kala boliyada is definitely mutter. Drying them, is that independent heta? Or folding laundry, is that independent heta? That's what there's some type of dissent in the poskim. Now, the best eitzah, of course, with laundry is chachameinu b'roisha. You wash Thursday like the halacha dictates and put it away. You can put it away Friday. But Shabbos, the laundry should not be folded and put away. If you have a good arm and you can take the laundry and scatter it all over the floor, so then if it gets pizo, but then you make the laundry dirty, you have to wash it again. So it's time to speak about lonis. But if you could employ the heta of pizo, that's very helpful. Today's the world of toys, and but after a game is finished, to put back each piece in its own box is the machlokes, the prima and bialoch. Because that's oichel, the oichel that you're not using. So that would be a problem. Like the bialoch is maskana of the maisi of making a maisa boy with a teitzah. If for some reason you dafka want to put them back on Shabbos, and if it's feasible, take all the mixed up toys and pieces, scatter it on the floor. Once you scattered it, it's not a taroivis, there's no maisa boy. Then you have to just worry about perhaps this should be a problem of hachana. Now, cleaning the table, so let's go in order, the plates. So, pashtas, we have to say, the starting point is taking these cutlery from on top of the plates. So here the poskim say, again, it's totally in the way we perceive things. It's totally in hafchana daka, but cutlery on a plate is not a teroivis. It's a hay lechudei, v'hay lechudei. And that's why cleaning a plate is also not a teroivis. Just like washing dishes, no issa of kibus. It's not enough of one to make it an issa kibus. There's no issa of boira in cleaning a plate. That l'choyre should be pasha. Now, lamaisa, Rav Moshe says, if you have a stack of plates, you can put it in the dishwasher instead of putting it in the sink. Even though it's step one to wash Mitzvah Shabbos, but it's not a chana because you want them to keep the kitchen clean. You don't want to have dirty dishes in the sink. But Moshe adds to take the plates, and once you put it in the dishwasher, I might as well put each one in its own compartment. So that's a chana, number one, and number two, it's boyer. Because could be stacks of plates and different sizes, that might be a boyer issue. So in a case where a person wants to put in the dishwasher, put them in bulk, in groups, and put them just the way it is, and after Shabbos you will straighten it out. Now, that's l'chayra as far as dishes are concerned. Cleaning a table has its own unique issues. I'll give you a good example. And I go to a camp, I'm in a yeshiva, and Baruch Hashem, it's a matziv, as you know, and the table after the sukkah looks like a bomb hit it. So let me tell you a shayla we had once. The way they asked me, in the camp I go to, someplace on this table, there's a salt shaker. I have no idea where it is. I have to take it out, because I want to fold up the whole table and throw it in the garbage. But I can't throw out the salt shaker, it's not disposable. So what do? So I told him, well, do you know where it is now? Is it a teroivis? Yeah, so what do you want to do? I told him, Rabbi Yashu once asked, what's the eitzah? So he goes, Vezok is on eitzah v'alzdink. What am I, dial eitzah, dial heta? If you tell me it's a teroivis, and you're not using it right away, so it's boyer. But it's my job to clean up the table. Good. But it's not derech achila, take it off the table now. But I'm putting there b'shal shudas. But that's not la'alta. So he said, maybe can I take the salt shaker and eat some of the salt? It's like people that were safi bracha that make a shackle on salt. So you have to know how Rama works by malacha deraisa. But if your starting point is a teroivis, then you talk about a malacha deraisa. So that's the chayr klor. Now, let's talk about at home. So typically at home, everything is on the table, but it's not like a mixture of balagan. It doesn't have the perception of being a teroivis, so there's no isaboy. A Baal Simcha that has, people come in waves, 8 o'clock minyan, 8:30 minyan, 9:30 minyan. So he wants to clean up at being gavel legavel. So you have to make sure you're taking psoilis from oil. If you tell me it's a teroivis and you can't have people come to a balagan, so your mind is a teroivis, you got to be careful. So if you chachamei b'roishi, you clean it more often, every few moments, you reduce it to a non-tarayvis. That's okay. But the point is, like who said there's an eitzah v'al thing? It has to be a plausible, sensible eitzah. So that's why in a camp, in yeshiva, make sure the table doesn't reach crisis level of being a tarayvis. If it does, maybe put the salt shaker on the side before you start. But this is an issue. Now, someone asked me a shayla which might be connected. His wife's ring fell in the garbage. Don't ask, why or how, but that's what happened. So fishing it out of the garbage on Shabbos is that mutter. So no doubt about it, a small ring in the garbage is tarayvis. So the mice fishing in the garbage, you're inevitably touching muktzah, moving muktzah, if there is such thing. In American garbage, there's always some eichel, but then again, there's always some chaylis. If there's a bones that in makom shlo shchiki klam is muktzah. So that's much easier, because even though it's an emes tarayvis, we're taking it out to use the ring right away. So then the heter would be eichel mitayv psailis. I mean, whatever ring mitayv psailis, biyad miyad. But here the salt shake is being taken out for many hours later. And that's not the time of a chana you need from one suda to the next to prepare the salt shaker 6 hours in advance. That taka is a real problem of boyer.
You push away the garbage, you don't see the ring. You're pushing it.
What's the difference? So that's their achsila. The halacha says that you want to look for your coat, you move other coats. So you have all the attempts. See, the ring is a beautiful, could be a half a share for itself. But it's their achsila, you have to worry about muktzah. But at the end of the day, at least it's a foreseeable la'alta. The salt shaker, again, the only eight to be, if he takes out the whole tablecloth, puts it in a garbage bag, and makes a chedmi. After Shabbos, come back and take out the salt shaker. That's his responsibility. But if you know Beheta, please dial me. I'd love to hear from you. But the Eisata, this seems to be a problem. Now, someone asked me, he served his child a main course, and he's not touching it. He's not moody. No, he wants to put it back. Is that considered boyer? So he's not using any of the food now. And the halacha says if it's a tarayvis, even though it's oichel and oichel, it's still boyer. But here the question is really it's totally on who's made the portion. You have a nice, loving grandmother that the plate is full to capacity, and one's touching the other, and everything, the table, it fits everything onto that plate. So that's the Trumas Hadeshin decide. If it's close enough that it gives you the perception of a tarayvis, you have a nice boyer. But if it's each l'chudei, and it's not the Trumas Hadeshins, ma'oiknek as far as halei, then you could say it's not a tarayvis. Tarayvis is not tarayvis. It's mutter even for many hours later. Another question I want to tell you also is again regarding the very big question of svarim. So the emphasis is that unfortunately, the way it should be, and this is my dream in a ben yeshiva and a balbatim, there shouldn't be a gabay svarim. You put back your own sefer. I mean, that's the simplest thing in the world. It's we who state this. We have to react kamoicha. And I mean, how many reasons do you need? You don't need a baron saying you need this Zarius and Resha, this type of saying even worse. You don't need all those signs. Yiddishkeit. That's an aleph of Yiddishkeit. But the Maisa, until the Yimei Tikkun comes, we have problems. So the Maisa. Is it true, Taki, you put back svarim, it's a boira, because it's a pile and a different svarim? All Gemara Kedushins, if you have a Shir Kedushin, is all min echad. But a Rashban, a Ritva, and a Gemara, and a Baruch Beh, so it's a Taruvos, no doubt about it. So some people, Taki, don't learn the whole week. With a Choshen, they might learn on Shabbos and might make boira. But Lamaisa, the most Paisim, I'm not going to say the Kul Alma, but I think it's understandable that most Paisim hold svarim on a shelf. And on the spine is noticeable what sefer it is. So even though it's taka, in yeshiva, like it's all achrayim. So it's mamish. You can have 20 svarim, and each one's a different sefer, a different min. But if they're laid in a shelf, that's not a tarayvis. That's what the assumption is. And Moshe Gad says at night and there's no light in the room, so even if it's labeled, could be it's a tarayvis because you can't see it, which is got a very negate. Because you want to go get a sefer, but you have a child sleeping in your study. So you go in and you open the door a little bit, and you can see it, fine. But to take out one, you know which it is, but if ilamaisa, if you can't see it, that would be a tarayvis. That's what Moshe said. But no doubt about it, that the etzem svarm on a shelf, the chayra, should not be a tarayvis. But all those svarms seem to agree that if it's on the table in a pile that's laying, on one top of the other, and one goes this way, one the other way, and you have to crane your neck to see and get the sefer, That's not Masuda. That's Imasuda. That's Taroibus. So the Shaila is, Ma Yasa Gabe Svarim V'Layachta.
Put it all in the shelf.
Oh, wait. So the best eitzah would be if we put back Svarim. Explain Mizalman, he says it twice. I'm not sure exactly what he means, but I think I know where he's coming from. In Shmir Shabbos, Gimel Reish Lamed Tes, I don't know what he thinks he means. In Shin Yotes and Shulchan Shloim Ha'ora Yudalid, he says, part of learning is putting back Svarim. I think what he means to say is that's part of the La'alta. You finish learning, you put back a Sefer. He says, no, boy, by Svarim, put it back by piles of Svarim. Because even though you learned with them and you're putting them back, but that's part of La'alta to put it back. And they say if you don't put back the Sefer, Aaron said if you don't put back the Sefer to the place, you don't get schar from learning. What's Shad? Aaron said, Ferish Gemara. Gemara says if someone does is mavaz a Sefer, nik fa'orm. Nik fa'orm, touch the Sefer. Nik fa'orm sal kedaitach. A nik fa'orm yi oisa mitzvah. You touch the Sefer Torah as you're doing the Aliyah, so you bezoyim the Sefer. Aaron says he thinks that not putting back a Sefer is a bezoyim for the Sefer. And maybe nik fa'orm yi oisa mitzvah. Rahman al-Islam. Whatever the case is, we'll look at it like part two of taking it out. So we write that's the out of taking it out, that's what Shlomo Zalman seems to say. But all Paiskim do agree that when there's a taroivis, you got a problem. So if someone's a big lamdin, let him be a lamdin after he finished learning, and put the svarim, don't pack them up and then say, what am I going to do? Take a few at a time and hold it in your 2 hands, and you hold one say in hands and your arm. Don't let it taruvis, but make sure the svarim get back to the place. That is what we have to try to achieve. What should a Gabbai Svarim do? So this was the question that was asked to Rav Osna, and he said, what's the problem? Like you said, Kolabol Yadai, one at a time, and you're okay. We agree. But since most Paiskim did not accept that, we have that problem. There is an eitzah, believe it or not, that you're a good shotgun, because typically when you have piles of Svarim on the table, you have empty shelves on the wall. So what you could do is, if you're allowed to take a pile of Svarim, which is a Teroivis Goma, and put it into the Svarim shop. So what you did was, you made a new type of pizza. But fakir, you took a Teroivis, which on the table it is, because you have to turn it this way, you grabbed it and you put it into the shelf. So that would be a lamdis that you're making ois Teroivis without a ma'aser boyer. But such a lamdin, you might have put back your Svarim. Now let me leave you with 2 beautiful oris. I'd love to have the oilam. I don't typically like chumras, but this seems to be more than just a chumra ba'alma. And here's the question. The halacha is of taroivis, as we called it, it has to be a real mixture. If haylechudei b'haylechudei, it's not a malacha boyer. So the shaila is, so why then is it, Shulchan Aruch discusses the question of a layer of fat on a piece of meat, or orange peel on an orange, no taroivis. It's on the outside, the inside, or on the side. If there's a point of connection that makes it one, that is the Taroivis Hagam. It's not physically mixed, but it's mixed in the fact that in relationship one to the other. So someone asked me, and he's a Ben Torah, Taki has the Sosna Sat Bamun at a young age. He once had a shah. He took in the camp we have disposable plates, plastic plates. So he used a plate for the Sukkos. He's about to throw it out, and he noticed that there's a clean plate on the bottom. Now, typically, especially the cheaper plates, they stick pretty much together. So it's rare to get one at a time. You have to always separate it. And it's not just, separate like cup one from the other. It's not a little of a dibuk. So the shaila is, can he throw away the plate as it is? He's wasting his shiva shegelt. It's a camp money. It's a cost or whatever. Shava pruta. But then again, taking off the bottom plate, l'chayra should be a ma'aser boira, not la'alta. He finished eating. So is that considered enough of a taroibis to make it an issa unless he does it to use right away? I don't know from the Yerushalayim of Yenim Zapruta, but is that enough to make it a ma'aser boira? If tak you need patience, you have to have patience to get it off. It's like very frustrating. It doesn't come. So think about that. But the last shayla taka is taka the dessert for today, and that let me give you, for those of you that haven't been in yeshiva a long time. Let me remind you of Giras Yamkasa. The Bachim have teplach and shislach, that's the cups and the basins, and they're stackable. They're all the same size. It's very convenient. It's very nice. You see like 20 cups and 20 basins. Now let's talk about the early to sleep bachafer. He comes first, and there's 25 cups. They all look the same. They're all the same size. So he wants to prepare his negabasa. Now typically Bachim don't get up alta, if you know what I'm talking about. It might be a little longer than that. So there's no heter of la'alta. So what's the heter? And the chayra, if they're all the same type of cup, and it's a tarayvus. Now, if the understanding in the yeshiva is, like we say, in our yeshiva, malbar means mutter l'shtamish b'li rishus. So then, all the cups are min echad, because I could use whatever I want. But let's say each one has their own, and each one takes their own, and there's no unspoken rule, or spoken rule, or malbar, it's better, worse yet, it's albar, os l'shtamish b'li rishus. So then yours is not mine, and mine is not yours. So it's like two different meaning. The only shaila is, wait a second, good. But I'm taking the good, mine, from the bad, right? And I'm not using a keli. But here we come to a sensitive question, is that considered la'alta? Because I'm filling it up now. I'm first using it many hours later. It's filling up the heta because it's la'alta.
It's like washing the dishes, we said before.
What?
It's like washing the dishes, we said before. You wash
So,
it now.
when am I going to get there? So here, some say that, I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong in Havana. The heta is not, if there's no heta, we'll give you a heta anyhow. The heta is a very geshmaka heta. Derech achila means this is not nisyachet as a maisa tikkun, it's a maisa achila. That is shaykh maisa achila when there is an achila. So the washing dishes, there's no step 1 to step 2. You wash the dish, that is the derech achila. But in washing negavasa, filling up the negavasa, even though it's a big mitzvah, you're not supposed to sleep, I heard all the from kind, I know. And I also I'm not taking it lightly. But at the end of the day, that step 1 to washing, the achila is the netil shadayim in the morning. This is an achana for the netil shadayim. This is a tikkun, not a derech, it's a tikkun oichel. So why should that be a real ma'aser boyer? So the emes is, if each one taka the stack, but each one he writes his name in it, and looking at it, you could just see which is yours. So if you create it in a non-tarayvus situation, if you really want, the first bacha could be a tzaddik and fill up the negalas for all the bacha. So they're all oichel, which is not going to happen too soon. But what could be also, if you want, but at your own risk, you make it derech pizza, take the whole thing and throw it on the floor and pay for all the broken cups. What I did see, a new svara, but again it might be debatable, so we'll debate it right away. And that could be a new svara that maybe the gather of min echad is totally in the chefza. Different chveitzim, chocolate cake and honey cake is 2 different meaning. Washing cups, which they're all the same, assuming they're all the same quality, the same amount of content. It's just a bias, mine versus yours, even if it's an albar attitude. But at the end of the day, lamaisa, it's min echad. So when you have something that's different, l'moshel, you have 2 different tastes or 2 different color socks, that makes it shnei minim. If it's all the same cup in its function, it's just bias, maybe bias does not make it into shnei minim. If it's not shnei minim, there's no issa boira. You don't have to do Shabbos to you.
The bowl, I understand that.